E-Biology class, Fatima Convent High School, Chapter 8, How Do Organisms Reproduce, Class 10. Now in this session, we are going to study about second mode of reproduction, that is sexual reproduction. Let us see what is sexual reproduction and what is the difference between sexual and asexual mode of reproduction, and what are the advantages of sexual reproduction and disadvantages of asexual reproductions or limitations of asexual reproduction. Why sexual reproduction is preferred more over asexual reproduction. Now, sexual mode of reproduction can be defined as when a new organism is generated from two different organisms and fusion of their cells giving rise to a new offspring is called as sexual reproduction. So we can say that sexual reproduction can be defined as the mode of reproduction in which both sexes, male and female, involve to produce new generation is known as sexual reproduction. Now, we are also familiar with mode of reproduction that depends on involvement of two individuals before a new generation can be created. Bulls alone cannot produce new calves, nor hens alone produces new chicks. In such cases, both sexes, male and females, are needed to produce new generation. What is the significance of this sexual mode of reproduction? Are there any limitations to the sexual mode of reproduction, which we have been discussing above? So, when you generate from two individuals, it is sexual mode of reproduction, and when you generate from a single parent without gametes, then it is asexual reproduction. Now, the limitations of sexual reproduction is it hinders diversity. Limitations of asexual reproduction. Now, first you can say it does not allow diversity, so hinders or does not allow diversity, which is very important for evolution on life on earth. Now, organisms reproduce very quickly. As a result, the number of offspring increases, leading to increased competition. So, more population or increased population, which causes other problems. Then, inheritance is possible only for single parents. So, the characters which are carried forward can have lots of flaws. Population cannot be controlled as the reproduction is very quick. Organisms cannot adapt easily. and the niches or the gaps in the environment get filled up quickly, but no variation is observed. So, these are the important limitations of asexual reproduction, and that is why we select sexual mode of reproduction. Now, let us understand that in detail. Now, the creation of two new individuals cell from one involving copying of DNA as well as cellular apparatus. The DNA copying mechanism, as we have noted, cannot be absolutely accurate, and the resultant errors are the source of variation in the organism, which is very important. Every individual organism cannot be protected by variation, but in a population, variations are useful for ensuring the survival of species. It would therefore make sense if organisms come up with reproductive modes that allow more and more variations to be generated. So, this is the importance of variation, and which can be brought about more by sexual reproduction. While DNA copying mechanisms are not absolutely accurate, they are precise enough to make generation of variations a fairly slow process. In the DNA copying mechanism, where to be less accurate, many of the resultant DNA copying would not be able to work with the cellular apparatus and would die. So, how can the process of making variant be speeded up? Now, to speed up this, we need sexual mode of reproduction. So, each new variation is made in DNA copying that already has variation accumulated from previous generations, and thus when two different individuals in a population would have give different patterns of accumulated variation, since all of these variations are in living individuals, it is assured that they would not have any really bad effect. So it is actually more variations, because now the variations are coming from two individuals which have accumulated variations from generations. The combining variations from two or more individuals would thus create new combination variations. Such combination would be novel, and since it could involve two different individuals, the sexual mode of reproduction incorporates such a process of combining DNA from two different individuals during reproduction. So, this is what we can understand the benefits or advantages of sexual reproduction. But this creates a major difficulty. If such new generation is to be combination of DNA copies from two pre-existing individuals, then each new generation will end up having twice the amount of DNA that the previous generation had. This is likely to mess up the control of cellular apparatus of DNA. How many ways can we think to solve this difficulty? Now let us understand this concept. Now we know that cell division occurs by two processes, mitosis and meiosis. Now when we talk about these two, mitosis and meiosis, the number of chromosomes are to be checked, because if you talk about a human, in a human being, in the female or in the male, there are 46 chromosomes for each. Now, when meiosis occurs, the egg cell or ovum will have only 23 in the female, and sperm cell will have only 23 chromosomes each. So now this is a process in which the number of chromosomes became half. And then, by fertilization, they combine and give rise to a zygote. And this zygote will now have 23 plus 23 is equal to 46 chromosomes. So this is how the chromosome numbers is maintained. Or else, if it is mitosis, which is occurring in normal cells, then it would be 46 from female and 46 from male. Now this 46 plus 46 would lead to 92 chromosomes, which is not possible for any cell to have. So this is the mechanism of meiosis, which causes the maintenance of number of chromosomes in the cells as 46. So this problem, which was occurring about the resultant DNA content or the number of chromosomes and the DNA content in the new generation, is sorted out by this process. Now, if the zygote is to grow and develop into an organism which has high specialized tissues and organs, then it has to have sufficient storage of energy for doing this. In very simple organism, it is seen that the two germ cells are not very different from one another, or may even be similar, but as the body design becomes more complex, the germ cells also specializes. One germ cell is large and contains food stored, while the other is smaller and likely to be motile, means can move. Conventionally, the motile germ cell is called the male gametes and the germ cell containing the stored food is called as the female gametes. We shall see in the next few sections how the need to create these two different types of gametes give rise to difference in male and female reproductive organs, and in some cases difference in body of male and female. So the third problem, that is, what about the energy required for formation of the zygote, is easily cleared by this male and female gametes. Now if we go a little bit more descriptive about germ cells, then types of germ cells are male germ cells or male gametes and female gametes. Now, these are very small germ cells, and in very simple organisms, these two germ cells may be similar or little different. But in higher organisms, they are quite different. The male cell is always smaller. It is motile, means can move, and female cell is larger and contains nutrients. These are called as sperms, and these are called as egg cells or ovomes. So, this is how the mechanism of energy supply can be maintained in the higher complex grade organisms reproducing sexually. This is the advantages and disadvantages of asexual and sexual reproduction. Now let us just have a look over the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. If you differentiate sexual and asexual reproduction, then you can say it occurs in single individual. And it occurs in two individuals of different sex. Here, sex of an organism does not play any role. Whereas here, organisms are either bisexual, that is, having male and female sex organs in the same organism, or unisexual, that is, male and female organs are in different organisms. Now here, the characters which are inherited by the organisms are without any change. Inherited without change. That is, less variation. And here, it follows the law of inheritance and therefore more variation, that is, more variation, which is of utmost importance for existence of the species. There are various methods example, fission, budding, sporulation, etc. But here there are no specific methods. Or no specific types. It could be depending upon the body organization of the organism involved. And this is not sufficient to sustain life. And it is essential to sustain life. So, this is how the sexual and asexual reproduction are different from one another. In next session, we will understand sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Thank you.